Welcome to the Innovation Squadcast. If you're looking for a podcast about instructional strategies enhanced by technology, you came to the right place. In our conversations, we'll talk to tech experts, share ideas and strategies to help you build your toolbox with tools that you can use in your class immediately. All right, welcome back to the Innovation Squadcast. I'm Lindy Valachek.
And I'm Pam Hubler.
And we are back to talk about more Google refresher stuff. We're excited.
Yes.
We could talk about Google all day long.
Yes, we could.
Every day. So last time we talked about Google itself, and now we're going to kind of dive into all of the different applications for Google. So Pam, if you'll, we can just pause for just a second and listen to this week's tech tip.
This week's quick tech tip comes to us from Google Docs. They talked about it in Google Refreshers Part 2. So I just wanted to go over how you assign something to somebody. So in this particular Google Doc, the tech tip of the week is going to be the assign feature. And so I'm going to assign this. And so you highlight, you would the text that you want to assign. You would then add a comment. When you add a comment, I'm going to hit the Shift 2 button, making the @ symbol, and then I will add this at myself. And then there's a box that will pop up underneath it that will say assign to. Click the assign to, and then you click assign. This will send that person an email reminding them that they are assigned to a certain Google Doc. So if you're working in a Google Doc that has a bunch of different people and you're prioritizing and executing things that you're going to be sending out, this is a great feature for that. Remember the assign to feature inside of Google.
All right. You ready to dive into Google Docs?
Oh, yes. I love some Google Docs.
There have been some great updates. I think one of my favorite is the pageless format because sometimes you don't need that page break, and it's really annoying when you have something and it goes to the second page. So you want it to just be where you're scrolling. And all you have to do is go to File and then the page setup, and you can see two different tabs. One is Pages and one is Pageless up at the top. So then all you have to do is click on Pageless, and you can just click that, click OK, and now you don't have to worry about having a page break.
Yeah, I love that page list. And plus, there's so many times now we're not printing stuff, so there's no point in having that. I like that idea.
Yeah.
One of the other new features that I like, and it's something that I've kind of been waiting on for a while, is the watermark feature. So under the format tab, the insert tab, you can now use a watermark picture or words if you want for the background. For so long, that's been missing. You've had to use other ways around to get the watermark, but now you can use a watermark.
That's really nice, especially when you create things and you work really hard on something and you don't want somebody else to take your work. You can add your logo or whatever onto the back, and then you've got that kind of a lighter color in the back without it interfering with the content on the page.
Yep. All
right. And then there's also, have you ever tried using the @ menu? It's called building blocks, right?
Yes. It's like my favorite thing to use. So when you're using that @ menu, all you have to do is hit the @ sign, and then you'll notice that when you hit the @ sign, or type the @ sign, I should say. And so it'll give you where you can @ people. And one of the cool things about if you @ someone is it'll ask you, do you want to send this to them? Do you want to share this document with them? But also it gives you a whole lot of new features. So do you want to add meeting notes to this Google Doc, or do you want to email a draft to something? Do you want to add a file, or maybe start a list or media of some type? So the @ sign is not just for people anymore. It's for all kinds of different things. And along with that @ sign, I know you use the assigning feature all the time.
Yes, when it comes to assigning, especially if we're going through, let's say, an agenda, and there's something I want to remember to work on, or there's a project or whatever, I'll even add a comment and add myself. And so that way it sends me an email, because then I don't have to worry about jotting down notes during our meeting. I can just check my email later and see all those different things that I assigned to myself. Or if you want to assign it to another teacher, you can do that easily right there.
Yep. Another way that we use the at symbol is using it through checklists. And so that has become one of my favorite things in Google Docs now is the checklist. I'm one of those people that I need to write it down and then mark it off the list, showing that I've completed something. So that little checklist, you can, have your checklist and then actually click in the box and check it off. So that's another cool feature that is is a little bit newer than in Google Docs.
Same with the drop downs. Those are really cool because then you could just do insert and then there's an option for drop down. There are a couple that are already preset. So you've got the project status where you can just add that where if you're working on a project and you want to have not started, in progress, completed, it's a nice way to track. Review status, that's another one that's already there. Or you can just create your own drop down and you can pick the options that are in there. So that's kind of a nice way to keep track of things in Google Docs.
Yep. All right, moving on to Google Forms. So Pam, how do you see teachers or educators using Google Forms in the classroom?
I know one of the ways that I've seen is the daily check-ins just work. It might have just a couple questions where you can just share it in Schoology or share it in whatever learning management system you're using at the time. And you just got a quick link. They can answer those questions. And then you have that. You can even look at it in Google Forms or you can even look at it in Google Sheets to see your responses. So that's just one of the ways, the check-ins. And then I guess another way would be like reflections. That's probably one of my favorites is just kind of a reflection for kids and even for themselves.
Absolutely. And then some of the other features maybe that coaches or administrators are using it for are like observations or just surveying. And one of the features that I love about the observation is you can use that email notification and it will, once you fill it out, it automatically emails either the teacher that you've just visited, or if you're wanting somebody to get information back from filling out that Google form, then you can use that add-on.
And they've made Google Forms a lot cuter now because they have a lot more fonts. If you're a font snob, it's one of the areas that you can change the fonts, which is nice, just because the format itself was kind of simple. And so now they're just kind of adding more to it with fonts and different colors and backgrounds.
Some of the other features I like on the Google form, you can add in or you can import questions from other content. So other Google Forms, other Google Docs. So that's one of the features. You can also embed things within the form, or you can embed your form in different products like Schoology or Google Sites, or there's tons of different things that you can embed your Google form in. And something that I always forget about is that I love the feature that you can embed the YouTube videos in your Google form also. And I don't ever think about it. And when I just dawned on me to remind people of that.
There are so many options when you're in Google Forms, just depending on what you want to get out of the data. And then when you're looking at your responses, all those different responses, you can actually copy the graphs and you can use that data in other places.
Yep. All right. So talking about data, you know, I'm a data nerd. I love some data.
It's your math brain.
Yes, it's my math brain. Love some Google Sheets. And obviously you can create a Google Sheet from the Google form. So one of the things I know when I was in the classroom that I loved about Google Sheets is pulling data over and then using it as different types of trackers. That way I was able to see, you know, how my students were doing on different items. So how else do you...
Well, going kind of sticking with the combination of forms and sheets, I don't think people realize that you can create a sheet from the Google Forms. When you go to the response tab, there's a little green icon at the top and it's sheets. And you can create a new sheet or you can use an existing sheet, which is nice because then if you are trying to use Google Sheets for all of your data, then you can add responses from different forms onto one Google Sheet. Now that's a little hard to explain, so we might have to add something in the show notes as far as explaining that. And
speaking of show notes, if you are looking for our show notes, you can find them on the Anchor app. You'll have to hit the three little dots to locate the show notes, or on the YouTube. If you look in the description, we'll also have our show notes and also on our social media. I just want to make sure I put that little plug in.
Yes. Yeah, because it is nice to be able to go back and look at the notes. And then another thing in Google Sheets I use myself is as a tracker every day. It's kind of one of those things where I have it scheduled out for a whole month where I can see and color. I can actually categorize what I'm working on. So if I want to look back and see, okay, well, I'm working on projects a lot, or maybe I'm doing school support, then I can always look back and see how much time I'm spending. So those formulas, I mean, we could talk about sheets.
Yes.
there's a lot you can do in sheets, but people are afraid of it sometimes. So it is nice to kind of go in there and play and try all the different conditional formatting and like anyone that uses Excel, they have all the same features. You just got to find where it is.
Yeah, and I love the conditional formatting piece where if you're using it as a tracker for data for your classroom and you put certain limits on it, it'll turn things orange or red or green depending on how you formatted it. That was when I was in the classroom, I used that for like my small groups.
Yes.
And so pulling kids in that based on the standard that they were struggling in. So, and then Control F. I mean, you can use Control F in anything, but especially in sheets when you're trying to locate one kid's name or one small piece of data, or how many times is 0 show up on in your data, you can hit Control F and it will search the entire document for you. So not just a Google Sheets tip, you can use it in just about everything.
All right. And then comments on here. And when you're in Google Sheets, you can comment on a cell. I do like that feature where you can just insert the comment and then you can save all that stuff for later. And then it shows a notification that there are comments on your document. So it's really easy to see on the bottom tab that there's a comment for you to go back and check out.
Yeah, and it does the little doggy ear in the corner. So you know that there's been a comment left on that specific cell.
Yeah, and you can click on it and it'll go right to it, which is nice because the more data you have in here, that might get a little bit confusing. So you can just click right on it and goes to your comment.
Yeah, and I'm thinking like if especially if you're using it for remedial or to help students, you can leave your comment right there on there, like the dates maybe that you helped a student or anything else, or if you've met with a student on something specific.
And you can still assign in here, just like we were talking about in Google Docs, just using that @ symbol, the same things work in Sheets as well.
And then so I have to say, I don't know how many years I've been using Google Sheets. And one of the things I kept saying was, I don't love Google Sheets because you either have to space over so it goes to the next line, or you can't put everything in one cell, and I want more information in one cell. And then somebody showed me Control Enter, and I did not realize you can hit Control Enter in a cell and it takes it down to the next line. So that was like a, mind-blowing moment for me. But Control Enter, and you can stay in the same cell and keep typing. So
yeah, it's the little things.
Yes, definitely the little things. And then again, you have the drop-down lists in here also, so that you're able to create lists if you want, and just like in your Google Docs.
And that one is, where do you add that? When you add those, do you do data validation, or which section do you use when you're doing a drop-down?
You use... Oh, yes, it is in data. I'm sorry. It is in data validation. So click on that, and then that's where you can create your criteria, show a drop-down list, and you'll have to create the drop-down list somewhere where people can't see where you've created it because you put it in certain cells. So check out the show notes. We have a short little video on how to do those. All right. Another thing that Google has done a really good job on is the cleanup. If you click on data and then it does data cleanup, they've given you where they'll remove duplicate things. You can trim white space. So if you have cell that doesn't have anything in it, it will get rid of it. It'll also give you other suggestions. The split text into columns, if you have two names or if you have a first and last name and you want it split, you can use that and it'll split the two names into two different columns. So I like that too. Definitely some different features. We could spend all day talking about all the features of Google Sheets, but those are just some of the newer or the features that we really enjoy.
Yes. All right. And now Google Keep.
This is your favorite.
I love Google Keep. I use it all the time. One of my favorite things is that you can add images to the top of your Google Keep notes. So that's always helpful for me as a visual to know what it is that, as far as I've got my updates or things to do. Things that are urgent, those kind of images I have at the top of my Google Keep notes. And I love adding collaborators. That's the other thing. Because then if you're working on a project together, it's one of those easy ways just at the bottom.
Yeah, I send it to my husband for our grocery list sometimes. I'm not going to lie.
Right.
For personal and professional stuff.
So you just click on the collaborator. It looks like a little person with a plus on the bottom, and then you can add it. You can add another teacher or a coworker or family member, and then they will also have access to this note. And it doesn't matter what device they have. They can get to it on an iPhone. You can get to it on an Android phone. You can get to it on your computer. Doesn't matter which device you're on. You can get to Google Keep, which is nice.
So if you're a sticky note lover like we are, Google Keep is definitely something that you are going to need to check out to make your life much easier.
Yes.
One of the other things that it does that I really like when we're in a meeting and we're taking notes, a lot of times I will, if I'm in my Google Doc, off to the right-hand side, you'll see all the different applications going down the side. And so if you click on Google Keep when it's down the side, it will create a new, you can take a note, click on take a note. And what I like about it is it bookmarks the doc that I'm working on, any kind of it could be a slide, a sheet, any of that, but it puts it in my note and then I can start taking notes and I have that note specifically there. And then kind of reversing it, I can open up a Google Doc and then pull over any of that information out of that Google Keep.
Yes. Like if it gets too long, I've done that at conferences before where it's like, okay, my computer died. I'm going to have to use my phone, but that's okay. Cause then anything I add to my Google Keep, I can add it to a Google Doc later.
Yep. Absolutely.
And on the left-hand side, when you're in Google Keep, especially on a computer, you can see all of your categories. So, and that's kind of a nice feature. So if you want to just look at the ones for a certain school, or maybe it's just to do, like I have a to do. What's it called?
So you can tag the different items.
Yes. So then I could just click on that and then it'll only show me my to-do list, sticky notes. So that's kind of cool. Well, they're not sticky notes, but you know what I mean?
Way prettier than mine.
I have pictures on the top of most of mine. And actually Slides Mania has a template that I'll add to the show notes. And that actually has the top, the headers that you can make. There's a lot of cool things you can do. And then when you're talking about visuals, I've used it with my phone before where I take a picture of, let's say, a document that has a lot of text. And if you take a picture and add that to Google Keep, you can actually grab the text image, the text from the image, and it will put it into the Keep note. So if it's one of those where you don't want to retype anything, I'll have to do a little GIF of that one because it's a really cool feature.
That sounds neat. And one of the other things that I love about Google Keep is the reminder section. I'm just creating reminders. And my favorite part of the reminder section is the location. So I use the location. So when I'm pull into my driveway, if I need to remember to do something, or I pull into a school and I have to remember to meet with somebody, I just add the location and it will pop up on my phone as soon as I pull into that address. So that's nice. Kind of neat. Yes.
I haven't used that one that much.
There's so many things on here that we could talk all day about Google Keep. I think we could talk all day about just about any of these applications.
Another thing that I like, when you're using the notes, it starts as where it's just like where you're typing like on a regular document, but you can add the checkboxes. And I do like the checkbox feature because then you can click on that little checkbox and it crosses it out. So if you've got that to-do list and you're like, oh, I just want to cross it off.
And you know what I like about that part?
What's that?
It doesn't delete it.
Yes.
It puts a little strike through and moves it to the bottom. So I can still see that I got something accomplished today.
Yeah, that is a fun feature.
All right, Google Sites, Pam.
Okay. Let's see. So we've got Google Sites has come a long way over time because it used to be a little boring. So now there are all sorts of fonts you can add. You can add images, you can embed information, and you can even link onto other sites. So it's really simple to start a Google site. What types of ways have you seen for students that for using Google Sites?
So I've noticed a lot of student creation or like portfolios. Those have been kind of big in the past year. Teachers having students create a Google site to kind of showcase their work.
Right.
One of the other things that I've seen like really teachers create but students use are the breakouts. So the digital breakouts.
Yes.
We have lots of teachers creating digital breakouts using Google Sites. And so they embed all kinds of different features, and we can add that to the show notes too, all the different features and some examples of some breakouts and other ways that teachers and students are using the Google Sites.
And the student portfolio that you mentioned, there is even a template. When you open Sites, just sites.google.com, you go to the top and student portfolio is actually one of the options. So it's a really nice way to start where it already has a little bit of a template for you. And then you can go from there. There's also portfolios. There's events. There's all sorts of templates already there for you. And if you want more, click on the Word template gallery and you'll see more options to just give you a place to start.
Something else I really like, and I think that teachers do a really good job with their students, is they're able to embed all kinds of different things. So if they've typed something on a Google Doc or slides, they're able to embed that right into the Google site. And so it's like a one-stop shop where all their work is in one place. They're not having to go and find different things. They can have it right there.
Yes, it is a nice, and it can go with them from year to year too. So It's not like it's going anywhere. It's just like third grade, they're working on it. They can go all the way through high school working on this. And then they have this perfect little portfolio to show all the growth that they've had over time.
Yeah. And it's their creation. So you can create it with buttons or with pictures or text box. And one of the other things I know that we've gotten feedback on is the actual button, where you actually create a button. Some people have branched out and they are utilizing pictures, creating pictures and then linking the picture to somewhere else in the site. So they are kind of getting around that button that's not as fun looking possibly as and creating pictures.
All right. And then another thing that I really like when you're in Google Sites is there's so many things that you can insert. When you're in there, you see the text and images, you can embed and drive. But if you keep on scrolling down, there are so many features now that you can add that has the button like you were talking about. There are placeholders, you can add videos, you can add things from calendar. It's easy to click around and add content to your site. So that's a good thing to just try them each. Try each of them.
Yes. And then while we're being creative, Google Drawings, we see teachers and students using these, and I definitely have to share some of the templates that we've come across.
Yes.
One thing that's kind of neat is, and you can use this you can do the same thing with slides also, is that teachers are using the sides. So not necessarily the canvas part of Google Drawing, but they're using the sides also. So if you have something in the actual Google Drawing that you want your kids to do, but then maybe it's a drag and drop feature, they've put like the things that you need to drag off to the side. Again, it's kind of hard to explain without seeing it, and then the kids can drag from the sides over and put it where it needs to be.
I do like that. I know I've tried, like in Canva, you can create a lot of different things, but you can't use the space on the outside.
Right.
So in drawings, I do like where we have one-page templates. Anytime I'm creating something that's going to be just one page, I will create it in Google Drawings instead of Google Slides, or if it's a drag and drop like you were talking about. And then when you're embedding that document into like Schoology, it embeds perfectly because it has no outline, you know, how you can see like the page numbers on the
it's
bottom.
Transparent.
It's just transparent. So it's just one image and it's really easy to embed, but then it's still clickable like you would use in Google Slides. So you can do really the same features in both. It's just, if it's a one page, I'll go with Google Drawings.
And I also like the way you can edit pictures. There's so many features for editing pictures. If I want to, make something, I want to cut something out, or I want a transparent background, I always put them in Google Drawings and then download it from Google Drawings. I know my Bitmoji, sometimes I want to take something out of the Bitmoji. Maybe I don't want, a sign to be in my hand or whatever. And I do all that editing right there in Google Drawings. So.
And when we're talking about the Schoology headers and embedded hyperdocs, and hyperdocs would just be anything where if you have students working on multiple things, but you want it all in one, let's say one topic, another one that's kind of hard to explain without having an image. So we'll have some examples in the show notes. That's just a great place where you could still link things, but then have images besides, where it's not just a document itself.
Yep.
And then the headers, you can change the size easily just by going up to File and then the page setup and change the size so it's exactly the size you would want it to be in your learning management system.
And Google Jamboard is very similar to Drawings, except for it's more of like a sticky note feature. And so one of the things I like about Jamboard is that I know a lot of teachers use sticky notes and stuff, and we were talking about this in a meeting the other day, but what if you want to capture that and keep those sticky notes to go back on? A lot of times you're not going to keep 1,000 sticky notes, but with Jamboard, you can capture what kids are thinking on sticky note type feature, and then you can keep it for later.
Yeah.
So,
and the backgrounds, it's nice because those same backgrounds that you can use in slides or drawings, you can create them in Canva, you can create them in Drawings, you can really create them anywhere, and then change the background so that way the students don't move the items around. And so really it's just the sticky notes going on top of it, or even like a thing like a Venn diagram. You could put the Venn diagram as a background so they're not moving anything around, and then they can put the sticky notes where in the proper circles.
Right. And you don't have to just use sticky notes. You can type, you can write. So there are a lot of other features for the Jamboard. So I feel like we have done a lot of talking about Google. Can you think of anything else that we need to add on to the end of this before we...
No, just to go in and explore. Jamboard, I think, is one of the ones that I don't see very often being played with. So it's kind of a fun to do, especially if you're doing something that is virtual, like we do our virtual sessions. So we'll do a Jamboard so that way people can still participate like you were in person with sticky notes and a chart on the wall.
Yep. And we'll also leave some templates here too, because there are all kinds of different features that you can use, or templates that are already created that you can take and use in your class tomorrow.
Yes. All right. Well, that was fun.
Yes, that was fun. We want to tell you thank you for listening to us today, and we hope you come back and listen to our next podcast. Have a great day.
See you next time.